So I just wanted to share with you how utterly fascinating the body is. This has really been brought home to me this week, which is what made me think about it. As you know, one of the things that we do is really listening to the body whispers. We're really observing the body to find out what's happening. And I'd love for you to learn how to do the same, because just by checking in with your body, like once a week or something, you can start to gain an insight into what it's trying to tell you. So let's start with the forehead area. This is all the area for the intestines. So we've got the small intestine, which would be lots of little lines, like the Gordon Ramsay lines. And we've got the one large line that can come across like a big crease, which is the large intestine. So if this area is deeply wrinkled and crevassed, is that a word? Then what that can indicate is a source of toxicity. Now, people may argue, well, wrinkles happen as you get older. Yes, that's true, but also our detoxification pathways slow down and we actually gain more toxicity throughout our lifetime unless we're actively doing something about it. And the reason I don't think this is purely age related is because we see these things improve. So when we're doing detoxification with people, we can physically see the lines on their face becoming less deep. Their face looks fresher and clearer. So some people have like a central line down here, which is the stomach meridian. So what that means is that the stomach has to have the capacity to actually digest food. If we're not able to fully digest food, then it sits, it ferments, and it can produce intestinal gas. And then we have lines either side here of the eyebrows, and these can relate to the liver and gallbladder. And the gallbladder needs to be able to be putting bile out every time that you're eating. It's actually our first line of defense as well against any invading pathogens. But what the bile does is it aids in the breakdown of all the little fats in food. Now we also have the eyebrow area, and this can also be put into thirds, but this outer third here can be indicative of thyroid imbalances. So when we're seeing the eyebrows thinning on that outer third, then we can start suspecting thyroid. So one thing I'd say with all of these is no sign on its own is indicative of anything. So please don't start panicking if you see these things. What we do as naturopaths is observe the whole body, and we do that alongside a consultation. So we use something called the rule of three. So what I was saying about the stomach, for example, if we're seeing a central line here, signs on the tongue, which I will discuss, and the person's experiencing bloating, if we're physically palpating them and they're experiencing discomfort, and going through the whole history, everything relates to stomach, then we will suggest further testing or even refer to their GP. So an individual sign is no cause for concern. But let's just continue on. So when I was saying about the thyroid, there's lots of signs and symptoms that can link to thyroid. Don't worry if the outer third of your eyebrow is disappearing. So under the eyes can be both the kidney and the liver area, and that depends very much on the colour. So a bluish, blackish tinge is more to do with a need to support the kidneys. So we think hydration. And the brownish colour is more liver. And the liver is one of the body's main filters. So we can improve the liver with very bitter foods like rocket and radishes, watercress and celery. Let's see, what else have we got? And if the under the eyes is physically baggy, then it can show that maybe the body's lymphatic system isn't working effectively. And your lymph has to keep the blood completely clean. It's filtering all of the time. Again, we're going to look at other signs and symptoms. So we might check somebody's watch and see, are there any watch marks, which would show that the lymph is swollen. Check where the socks are the ankles swollen? And also we'll ask about certain other signs and symptoms, like how often somebody is urinating. Although that's a kidney sign, it can also show us what's happening with their lymph. So cheeks, we're looking at the colour of the cheeks. So some people have like a red band around here, which we call rosacea. And rosacea can be a sign of food intolerances, but can also be signs of the B vitamin deficiencies. This could be B3, B6, and we see it a lot in yeast intolerances. Is the colour more yellow? Yellow tends to mean more of a stagnation. So here we generally work on fluid balance through the kidneys and the liver. And we do these things using obviously water, but herbs as well, such as cleavers and dandelion leaf. Whereas a brownish colour to the cheeks tend to be more to do with the liver. So again, we get the bitter foods in, maybe some herbs such as milk thistle, barberry, or dandelion root. The lips are interesting because in older females, you see the purse strings. You'll know what I mean because it makes people look like a smoker. They may never have smoked in their life. But the purse string lips can indicate that the ovaries are starting to shrivel. It doesn't sound very nice, but they're declining, which is normal in age. But that potentially the additional source of estrogen, which would come from both fat cells and from the adrenal glands, may not be present. So if somebody is getting the purse strings, they are likely to have imbalances in estrogen, and their adrenal glands aren't able to produce that second source. Therefore, the body starts laying down fat cells. The person gets fatter and fatter because the body's trying to source more estrogen. So here we use our phytoestrogenic foods, which are lots of the green leafy vegetables, wild yam, sweet potato, etc. Let's see where else. I'm just looking at my own lips. Okay, so if somebody has very thin lips, like myself, actually that can indicate deficiency. So deficiency of the capacity to digest food, but also to eliminate effectively, mainly from the intestines. Whereas somebody has very big, fat, robust, round lips, they may have a tendency to even hold on to toxins in the intestines. But also it does show a robustness about them, a robustness for life, and also a certain vitality as well, whereas thinness shows almost like a deficiency of fluid. The person may be more cold. And then we've got the chin area, which can indicate colon imbalances, so large intestine. So if somebody's breaking out on their chin all the time, one of the things we ask is how often are you going to the toilet for bowel movement? Now, generally, we should be going 2 or 3 times a day. And some people still are, even if they're expressing on their chin, but they may not be fully eliminating during that time. So we generally discuss trying to get the bowel moving better using things like linseeds and flax seeds to sweep the colon clear, and maybe even some bowel cleansing herbs such as cascara. This area is also very much related to hormones. So if somebody's breaking out on the cheeks and the chin, we'd also consider balancing the hormones by supporting the liver. Now, what's interesting about the neck area is having a proper look at somebody. I'll often say to people, are you aware that your neck is swollen? And they'll say no. So I get them a mirror and I show them exactly where it's swollen. Now, it can be for different reasons. Remember, we said the outer third of the eyebrow as well can indicate thyroid. So we consider that the thyroid may be out of balance, but possibly it could be more to do with imbalances in the main nutrients needed to help the thyroid convert. So it has to convert something called free T4 into its active form called free T3. And for that, we need selenium, that's things like Brazil nuts. We need zinc, that's the seafood and pumpkin seeds. And it needs iodine, which we find from seaweeds. So a really useful tip that you can do is to paint a patch of iodine around here, just a 3-inch square one, and time how long that takes to go. Now, some people can be allergic to iodine, so I would suggest doing a very, very small patch test first on your wrist. And if everything's okay after 24 hours, you can do this test over the thyroid gland. But the test really should take 24 hours for that iodine to disappear. If it's 0 to 6, it's severe deficiency in iodine. 6 to 12 hours, it's moderate. 12 to 18, mild, and 18 to 24 is somewhere about right. So time it. See how long it takes. Again, rule of 3, this has to be combined with, is the person feeling cold? Do they have headaches? Are they struggling in weight loss, or even are they gaining weight quite rapidly? Some people can be very, very thin and still have underactive thyroid. But looking at the neck, and we can see if it's swollen, it could be nutritional. So it could be that they need the iodine, zinc and selenium to help the thyroid to work better. And then we can look at the tongue as well. So for yourself, stick your tongue out in front of the mirror, have a good look. But what these can indicate is if it's very pale, it can show like a coldness and a deficiency. If it's very red and hot, it can show that all the body fluids are a little drying. So if somebody doesn't have the right body fluids because it's all quite dry in there, then they'll feel thirsty all the time. They may not be able to poo. They may have dry eyes. They may constantly need to drink water because the mouth feels sticky and dry, maybe even bad breath. Whereas if it's very pale and swollen, the person may have swollen body. So they may have water retention. Again, we'd look under the eyes, we'd check where the watch is, and we'd ask about their fluid intake, because maybe they're drinking, but peeing, and it means that they're not holding the water. So there's little tips that we do to help somebody with that. These are just little things, but this week I was doing some observations on somebody. We'd gone through the face, the tongue, the eyes, the nails. I mean, we literally check the whole body to see what their body's whispering to us. And then sometimes it's obvious that we need to do further tests because they've surpassed that rule of 3. And so this week I was suspecting parasites, and by looking at the blood markers, we were able to detect that there were in fact intestinal parasites. So somebody might say, well, why weren't you looking at a stool to check for parasites? Well, in the blood, if there's things like imbalances in the white blood cells, the eosinophils, I can't think of any others, some of the red blood cells as well, it can show intestinal parasites. So all these things are put together to create a whole picture. Another thing that happened this week is that somebody showed all the signs and symptoms, quick test of their thyroid, which is actually 5 markers, not 3 like what you get from the GP. We look at the antibodies and we look at free T3, and in some people we look at reverse T3. And they had all the signs and symptoms, and their TSH was normal. That's the one that the GP looks at, but their free T3 was on the floor, so they didn't have any energy, with very raised antibodies. So this shows that their immune system is attacking the thyroid. But if you only look at the one marker, TSH, you wouldn't know that. But because of the rule of 3 of really assessing the body and listening to the person and doing a full blood test, we can detect what's going on. So start to learn about your body. It's absolutely fascinating. Look at what your body is trying to tell you. But if you're unsure, come and see us. We're at naturalpractices.co.uk, and you can always book in.